Hello everyone, I'm Alison Steinberg and welcome to In Focus. Despite the many attempts by the left to paint the anti-Semitic and anti-American college protests as a student rite of passage, they're anything but. What many on both sides are missing is that they're a deeply disturbing display of the truth that America has not only forgotten 9/11, but many have taken up the ideology of those behind it. And it's not just Columbia, and these are not peaceful protests. At USC, police had to use batons to fend off the violent protesters. At UT Austin, fortunately, the violence got tamped down quickly as the Texas National Guard showed up big, like they do everything in Texas. Speaker of the House Johnson showed up at Columbia and met with their president, demanding she make order out of the chaos and to show that Congress is standing with the Jewish students. More importantly, he called out the Islamic terrorist ideology behind these protests and how despicable it is that this is happening in a post-9/11 America. Take a listen.
Today, Hamas issued an endorsement statement of the protesters on this campus. They called them the future leaders of America. It is detestable. The harassing and the intimidation and the threatening of innocent Jewish students simply because of who they are. They've called that peaceful protest. And some have even gone as far as calling for the state of Israel to be eliminated.
Joining us now to weigh in, educational consultant Dr. Tabia Lee. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Allison. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, these are truly frightening events happening on college campuses that obviously I think involve more than just the students, but outside agitators as well. Why do you think it is? Why haven't the presidents of these schools done anything to stop this?
Well, I think that there's a problem that many people aren't taking a look at. When I've been following these encampments very closely, and I noticed that all of their tents seem to look the same, and their professionally designed placards also look the same. And I think people need to start taking a look into who is funding these encampments that are spreading rapidly. I saw at University of Texas, Austin, the clip that you just showed, some of the placards had the Workers' World Party on it. And that's deeply concerning because that is a communist party. They are communist activists and agitators, and they believe that a socialist revolution is necessary to overthrow capitalism and to establish socialism. So I think this is much bigger than just the anti-Semitism that we're seeing. I think we have paid Communist Party activists and agitators on our campuses, and we need to address that immediately.
Yes, I agree. I think it is bigger than that. I think you're exactly right. It's so concerning nonetheless. How do you think this all sort of began? How did colleges become such incubators for what we're seeing play out right now?
Well, we've seen the overtaking of teachers' colleges of education and teacher training programs throughout the 60s and 70s, bringing in these radical critical social justice ideologies, people who are deeply committed to it. And I had personal experience, Allison, up front and in person, and I saw the way that these communist agitators work on campuses, the way that they overtake the leadership structures, and they've been very successful in many places. And now we're seeing the fruits of their labor. And I fear that they are being very effective at what they're attempting to do, which is to undermine our academic institutions of higher learning, to make it impossible for any students, not just Jewish students, but any students to be able to actually go and learn, and to upset and disrupt the educational system to reach their higher aims of overturning the entire American system towards their socialist and communist aims. That's exactly what we see happening. And the provocations that are going on are very dangerous. And our students and our young people are being used as pawns in a dangerous political game right now.
Yeah, it is incredibly dangerous. And it's so unfortunate that they are seemingly so successful in their agenda here. I'm so glad you're connecting the dots between the communists and the Islamists who clearly share the same goal for transforming America. But it's not just the leaders of the institutions who are defending this terrorist movement. I also have a clip of an alleged national security analyst to show you. Let's roll that and then we'll come right back to discuss.
The students are allowed to protest. This should not be a shock to anyone with teenagers or young adult children. They have strong feelings and they're passionate, because if you just immediately go to arrest, it's going to cause, I think, some of the what we're seeing on air, which is nothing's happening and then lots is happening.
Oh, right. They're just youngsters blowing off steam. This is wild. What's your reaction to this?
If these were actual student protests, then I would agree with the assessment. But that's not what we're seeing. These are not just students.
Yeah.
Many times they don't even belong on the campus. They're not even enrolled. And they're being guided and led by faculty members and outside agitators who are very skilled at this. We've seen this before, Allison. We saw this at Kent State. We saw this in other actions that have been done by radicals throughout American history. And the difference is right now we're kind of just allowing it to foment and calling it protests. But these are not protests. These are communist actions. These are common tactics that are used by communist agitators and activists. And these aren't just student protesters who are protesting, something they see as unjust. Young people want to belong, and the people who are funding this and behind this, they are leveraging that need and want to belong to use these students to advance their goals, to overthrow the American system, to overthrow capitalism, and to establish socialist communist rule here in America. And we just simply cannot allow it.
Yeah, we simply cannot. I have a clip of Benjamin Netanyahu. He draws some similarities to what's happening here over to what happened in Nazi Germany. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll come right back.
It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more.
As we know, Hitler's youth played an important role in the Holocaust. What do you think? Do you agree with his assessment that this is ultimately history repeating itself?
President Netanyahu hit it right on the money. And the universities and colleges in Nazi Germany were primary activators, using the students, using the young people, using their want to belong, to change, to have, a shift in their society. And unfortunately, we see that repeated here again. And what President Netanyahu said at the end of that clip, they're saying death to Israel and death to America. It's unconscionable that we have our college students supporting Hamas out in the open when they're a known terrorist organization.
Yeah, it's absurd. And, many of these dimwits actually have zero idea what they're even protesting, honestly. They just see this trending on TikTok and then they just go out and get involved. Here's a clip, in fact, of two admitting just that. Let's take a look.
I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
Well, I guess the mask sums up everything you need to know there, but I can't imagine being that dumb, let alone admitting it on national TV. I mean, what do you make of this one?
Something that I focus on is the surroundings and the environment there. And what I saw behind that student was a placard, and it said Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I've studied this group and organization. They are Communist Party activists and agitators. They are seeking to overthrow America, capitalism, anything that supports those things. So that would include Israel and that would include America. And that's why we hear these chants like death to Israel and death to America, because that's what we stand for, democracy and free markets. And so this is a very dangerous thing. Those are professional placards. Those aren't handmade placards. So we need to follow the money and see who's funding this. And they need to be held accountable for fomenting and supporting terrorism. Yeah. I think that's illegal here in our country.
I think it is too. But you mentioned follow the money. I want to know, who is funding this? Who do you ultimately think is behind all of what we're seeing play out here?
Well, I think two key things to look at are what organizations are on the placards that the students are holding up. The Workers' World Party and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We have to trace and find out who is behind the funding of those organizations, who has got these tents put up all over the place that all look the same. So these aren't students coming with tents from their parents' garage. Yeah. These are tents that are being given to them, and they're setting up and doing this action in a very coordinated way. And I heard that person say that they weren't a student. They were over at Columbia and they came over to NYU. So they're just kind of shifting these activists around as needed and using their networks. And it'd be really good to know who is behind this funding and to hold them accountable because we're not going to allow America to be destroyed. And we're going to continue to live and to be vibrant, and the same for Israel.
Absolutely. Well said. Great points, Dr. Lee. Thank you so much for joining us to weigh in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.